Hi, we're going to be covering section 1-4 today, solving absolute value equations. So we're going to talk about absolute value expressions, how to solve absolute value equations, what it looks like when there's no solution to these, and what it looks like when there's just one solution to these. So first example, evaluate those vertical lines are called an absolute value. So evaluate the absolute value of 4x plus 3 minus 3.5 if x is equal to negative 2. Before we do that, we kind of need to talk about what an absolute value is. An absolute value is just the distance a number is away from 0. For example, the absolute value of, that didn't work. Absolute value of negative 2. How far away is negative 2 from 0? Well, that's equal to 2. Okay, the absolute value of 2, well, that's also equal to 2. All right, so the absolute value of any number is just the distance it is away from 0. So it basically turns any negative number to a positive, or it keeps a positive number positive. So if we evaluate this, we get the absolute value of 4 times negative 2 plus 3. Okay, treat those absolute values like parentheses, so you have to do that first when we're simplifying this. Minus 3.5. So that's equal to 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 3. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So the absolute value of negative 5 minus 3.5. Okay. Well, the absolute value of negative 5 is 5 because it's 5 away from 0, minus 3.5. Okay, 5 minus 3.5 is 1.5. So you try the next one. It says to evaluate 1 1/3. Remember, I want you to write your fractions one on top of the other. So try to write them correctly for me. So 1 1/3 minus the absolute value of 2y plus 1 if y is equal to negative 2/3. So go ahead and give that a shot. Okay, 1 1/3 minus the absolute value of 2 times negative 2/3 plus 1 is equal to, so I'm going to change that 1 1/3 to just 4/3. Remember, 3 over 3 is the same thing as 1. 3 over 3 plus 1 over 3 is 4/3, so that's 4/3, same thing as 1 1/3, minus the absolute value. Okay, remember this is like having a 2 over 1, so it would be the absolute value of negative 4 over 3 plus 1, but 1, we need to have a common denominator to put these together. So 1 is the same thing as 3 over 3. Okay, so that goes to, let's see, we need to do inside the absolute value first, so we'll keep that 4/3 minus the absolute value of, let's see, negative 4/3 plus 3/3, negative 4 plus 3. The denominators stay the same since we have a common denominator. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1 over 3. Okay, now we do the absolute value, so 4/3 minus the absolute value of 1/3 is, or negative 1/3 is 1/3. And then 4/3 minus 1/3 is 3/3, and 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So hopefully that's what you got. Okay, that should just say solve absolute value equations. I'm just going to cross that off. Solve absolute value equations. So we need to think about what the absolute value is and how we get rid of the absolute value sign. If you remember earlier, we said both the absolute value of negative 2 and the absolute value of 2, both of those are equal to 2. Okay, so we have a positive and a negative that are both equal to that positive value. So one way you can think of it is, right now if we worked our way on the outside, we're trying to find the absolute value of something, this x plus 12, is equal to 9. Well, what are the two things that it could be? It could be a positive 9 or it could be a negative 9. All right? So one way we can represent that is we can just make this a plus or minus. So a plus or minus gets rid of the absolute value. So putting a plus or minus in front here and doing a plus or minus to the absolute value, that basically cancels the absolute value. So we know that both a positive and negative 9 then must be equal to that x plus 12. Okay, so we're going to have two answers. Let's work with, well, let's subtract this 12 over. Minus 12 minus 12. So I have two answers. I have x equals this positive 9 minus 12. Well, positive 9 minus 12 would give me a negative 3. Okay, and the second equation is going to give me a negative 9 minus 12, because we said that there was both a positive 9 and a negative 9. So negative 9 minus 12 is negative 21. So those are the two solutions for this inequality. And if you kind of plug them back in, it would make sense. If I plugged in a negative 3 for x, negative 3 plus 12 is 9. The absolute value of 9 is 9. Okay. If I plugged in negative 21, negative 21 plus 12 is negative 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is also 9. So both solutions work. Go ahead and hit pause and you try this next one. Okay, so hopefully you remembered if we have 8 equals the absolute value of y plus 5, right? To get rid of absolute value sign, we just do a plus or minus here and a plus or minus here. I just put the plus or minus to make sure I cancel that absolute value. Same thing to both sides of the equation, basically. So we're just in that habit. So a lot of people won't do that. They'll just put the plus or minus in front of the 8 and cross off the absolute value signs. So we have a plus or minus 8 is equal to y plus 5. Okay, so I subtract 5, subtract 5. So my two answers are positive 8 minus 5, that's 3, and negative 8 minus 5 is negative 13. So those are hopefully the two answers that you got. Okay, let's look at a couple of examples when we get no solution. So this one, it gets a little bit harder because we've got something in front of the absolute value sign and we're trying to solve for a. All right, what value would we get to solve for a here? So to get rid of that negative 2, we need to divide both sides by negative 2. So divide by negative 2, we'd get the absolute value of 3a is equal to 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. Okay, and then we go, all right, let's think about this. When can we get a negative number for the absolute value? We can never make this true. That is not possible. We cannot take the absolute value of something and get a negative value because it doesn't have a value to it. It's just a distance. It's distance away from 0, so we can't have a negative there. All right, we've got the size of it, not necessarily the magnitude is another way you could think of it. So a lot of people will just write the solution as a little circle with a line through it. That means no solution. Okay, so you try this one and see if you can prove why there's no solution. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, as you solve this one, hopefully you saw you needed to take away 8 from both sides because it's a plus 8. So let's subtract 8 and subtract 8 from both sides. So we get those to cancel. We get the absolute value of 4b plus 1 is equal to negative 8. Okay, that is a false statement. You cannot take the absolute value of something and get a negative answer. So right here that does not work. So no answer. Okay, let's see what it would look like if we ever get one solution. So let's see if we can put this together here. So let's simplify this a little first. Let's get kind of everything but the absolute value on one side of the equation. So let's add x to both sides here. Plus x. So we'd get 2 times the absolute value of x plus 1 is equal to 4x minus 4. We need to divide both sides by a 2. So I get the absolute value of x plus 1 is equal to 4x divided by 2 is 2x, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Okay, so we're trying to find out basically when is number 1 x plus 1 equal to, so that's a positive, equal to 2x minus 2. So let's solve this one. We would subtract both sides by 2x minus 1, we get negative x equals negative 3, so x equals 3. Okay, the other one that we need to check is if we do a negative x plus 1, that should be equal to 2x minus 2, because the absolute value says if we have a negative answer in there, that should also equal that. So you'd distribute the negative, we'd go, this is a negative x minus 1 equals 2x minus 2, and then move your 2x's over, move your 1 over, so we'd have negative 3x equals negative 1, divide by negative 3, divided by negative 3, x equals 1/3. Okay, and then you just plug it in and see, does your answer actually work? So if we plug the 3 in, 3 plus 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, minus that 3 on the outside is 5. Okay, is that equal to 3 times 3 is 9 minus 4? Yep, 9 minus 4 is 5, so that one works. If we plug in 1/3, we would get 4/3 times 2 would be 8/3, minus 1/3 would be 7/3. Is that the same as multiplying, let's see, 3 times 1/3 is 1, minus 4 is definitely not the same thing as the 7/3 we got over there. So even though we followed that, this answer, when we check it, does not work, meaning this is the only correct solution there. Okay, kind of weird. You really need to check these when you get your two solutions. You got to check them. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and hit pause, find the two solutions you think they are, and then check them to see if you have one solution or two solutions, or maybe even no solutions. So hit pause, go. Okay, as you did this one, you should have, number 1, just gotten the absolute value of 2x plus 2 by itself on the left. Okay, you would do that by adding 2x to both sides, so you have 3x plus 3, and then you divide both sides by 3, so you get just x plus 1 here. Okay, so we would check to see, is 2x plus 2 equal to x plus 1? So let's solve that. Minus x minus x minus 2 minus 2. We get an x equals negative 1. Okay, and when we try the other, the negative one, where we go negative 2x plus 2 equals x plus 1. Okay, so distribute that negative, we get negative 2x minus 2 equals x plus 1. So minus x plus 2 plus 2. So we get negative 3x equals 3. In this case, we divide both sides by negative 3, divide by negative 3. We also get x equals negative 1. So if you plug that in, check it to see if it works. It does, so we can move on happily. That should do it for solving absolute values. Please bring any questions. Thanks.